Okay, heading out again. Might do a topic on how foreigners are misled about Japanese culture. So I'd just like to frame this in this sort of context first. In my generation, there was a lot of this anime sort of thing that was everywhere, and didn't matter where you turned your TV on, didn't matter where you were. There's a big push of Japanese anime and this sort of stuff and crazy TV shows and things like that. That was all people had sort of access to. Plus all that sort of strange stuff as well. And that was pretty much the information people had about Japan, was just sort of through animes and whatever. And what I noticed when I first come to Japan when I was 19, which is a long time ago, is you had all these foreigners walking around with like Dragon Ball Z shirts and all this sort of stuff, and it just stood out to me just so stereotypical. And I was in the fortunate position, I used to share a room at a university in China with a Japanese guy, and I used to hang out a lot with the Japanese, young Japanese guys, and they used to relentlessly make fun of these foreigners with their Dragon Z shirts and just how clueless they are and all that sort of stuff. And that was my sort of first sort of awakening that what foreigners see and what foreigners perceive is not what the Japanese perceive at all. And the reason doing this video in this sort of context is it's actually on the YouTube yesterday. I was just having a look at some other channels, and what seems to be popular at the moment is this street interview stuff. So it's just basically guys with their cameras and they go up to people, and it's mainly women, and ask them questions and things like this. And after living here, anyone that's lived in Japan knows this. When you walk up to people on the street, 99% of the people won't talk to you on camera. It's not going to happen. But the way these sort of interviews happen, it sort of makes the Japanese very easily approachable, and you can ask them all sorts of questions. You know, even about their intimate affairs and everything. It's just not the case. And I noticed, which stood out so clearly, was the people that they managed to get on camera, which they would have had to stay all day just to get enough footage to make an episode. They were these sort of not your average Japanese person. So sort of I don't know how to call it without being rude, but totally sort of lower class, sort of street people almost. Not your typical Japanese at all. And a lot of the questions were targeted to foreigners, and obviously the answers as well were targeted to foreigners. So the answers were most definitely cherry picked, because anyone that lives here knows that most Japanese women won't date foreigners and won't marry foreigners. That's just a normal sort of thing here. Maybe only 5 to 10% may be open to sort of that sort of thing, but most will date and marry within their own culture, and there's totally nothing wrong with that at all. But the impression you get after watching all these interviews is comes across like it's our culture or something. You know, it's totally strange. And they're asking women how many men they've slept with and things like this. This totally would not happen in Japan. The people who would even contemplate answering that question is far from your typical Japanese. It's just absolutely crazy. So you could tell that sort of the questions and everything sort of melted in with what they call the manosphere here. And the manosphere with YouTube is sort of these channels that are run by blokes, and it sort of centers around all this Instagram sort of nonsense and infidelity and all this sort of stuff. A lot of questions like how muscly do you like your man, and all this sort of thing. And obviously all the questions are all cherry picked, and it's just totally nothing to do with Japanese culture or any insights into sort of how the average Japanese woman thinks. And anybody that lives here knows that they don't care. They only care that you have a stable job. That is one of the most important things, and it's never discussed at all on any of these channels. And anyone coming to Japan would have the impression, like these anime guys a generation ago, that you know, this is how it is here. And they're going to be totally surprised. You know, if there are some Japanese women that love muscly men or whatever, I mean, there's not enough of them for the amount of foreigners that come here anyway, if that's what they think they want. So it's totally skewed. It's like with the anime guys thinking that women liked the anime sort of culture, and they're getting into the anime culture a generation ago. Well, of course there are some Japanese women that are into that, or into men that are into that, but it's such a small, tiny minority that there's just not enough of them to date the foreigners who think they're into anime and stuff like that. It's just totally crazy. So a lot of people watching this sort of content have it totally wrong, and they're going to fall into the same trap a generation ago with these anime guys thinking Japan was all about anime and arcade games and crazy TV shows and slapstick and all that sort of stuff, and it's just not the case. So the figures that the last time I looked them up is it was over 85% of foreigners don't last 5 years in Japan, and a lot of them sort of get disenfranchised and disillusioned. And this is why. Because they've come here with a total ignorance to the actual culture, not the culture that sort of people are pushing on the foreigners. Because there is a buck to be made. So you've got the companies pushing the cartoons and the anime and all the merchandise and things like that. There's something behind it that sort of has a commercial incentive to sort of take up people's time in the media, you know, even back then. So it's the same now. I mean, these guys are making money giving content that people want to hear. So it's not in reality at all, and they're giving the foreigners the wrong impression. And the same thing will happen in the next, 10 years, 20 years or whatever. They're going to come here with the total wrong impression. And if you wanted to come to Japan, I mean, you have to be responsible. You have a stable job. If you want to marry and whatever here, I mean, 99.99% of women won't even consider marrying a guy that is not that doesn't have his stuff together. You can't just rock up to Japan and look buff and it's going to work out for you. I mean, it's just totally crazy. But that's the sort of impression that you get watching this sort of thing. There's no real reality behind it. So what I think might happen, just judging on what I've seen in my generation, is there's going to be a lot of disappointed people. Sort of the impression people are getting from this sort of content, and the reality is not going to match, and you're going to have another generation of disillusioned people, like what's happened with my generation, with all the anime and all the sort of misunderstanding or whatever. So if you're a young guy, and most of the people watch my channel from the analytics that you get on the channel are sort of over 30, but if you are a young guy, don't believe the hype. Japanese women value stability. They value someone with an income or a career or a good business, or something that is not going to add an element of risk in their lives. Japanese are very risk adverse, and if you're not sort of stable financially or anything like that, everybody that she knows will tell her not to marry you or whatever. So that's what you're going to be up against, and that's the reality of the situation. It's just how it is. It's how the culture is. So this whole sort of thing that happened in my generation as well, this sort of the media and the internet used to harp on about, you know, some of the strange stuff that you can find in Japan, you know, sort of the perverted sort of stuff, and it's just such a tiny little thing in a tiny little place somewhere, you know. It's just not representative at all of the culture, and it really angers the Japanese people when people mention, you know, the old vending machine and whatever, and because it's just so different to what the reality is. And it's the same with the anime thing. That's not what they're sort of about. It's just a little bit of thing that's been pushed really heavily in the Western media during my time, and it's made people disillusioned when they've come here. It's the reality hasn't matched, and they've gone home, and they've got bitter about it. Maybe they had a girlfriend here and she sort of broke up with him because he was a bit of a loser in her eyes, compared to what she's maybe expecting, and people get a bit bitter. And you do find people commenting on people's channels, and I've even had it on my channel, and that they've been in Japan, and you can just tell by just the tone of their comment that they're just bitter, and there's no doubt this has played a part in it. Their expectations are totally different to the reality, and this is what's going to happen with these street interview people. They're just feeding people nonsense because that's what they click on, and that's what makes them money, and the whole thing's just a mess. So that's my prediction. In the next sort of 5-10 years, you might have like a lot of people coming to Japan as more interest starts coming up, and the same thing will happen. People end up going home because the reality doesn't match it. People who live here will know. It's quite a strange phenomenon, but it's quite common to see sort of a really attractive lady married to a guy who has a personality of a wet lettuce, but he has a good job and stable income, boring as hell, but these are the sort of traits that Japanese women appreciate. They appreciate stability, knowing what's happening in their lives, and the money's coming in every week, and there's going to be no dramas, and everything's quite nice. They're not sort of into having an exciting life for most of them anyway. They're quite conservative, and they like risk-free things. Quite common for women to sort of ask what companies somebody's boyfriend works for, and if it's a big company or something like that, they say, "Oh, you're very lucky," or something like that. But it's not how big's the guy's muscles. It's never those sort of questions. It's always that sort of thing. So if you're coming here, you want to live here long term, maybe you're single or whatever, I'd work on that side of your life more than lifting weights in the gym with a pair of headphones on. I think you'll do a lot better. Beards, mustaches, things like that. I've got a beard myself. Doesn't matter, I'm a married man. But as I said, only like 5 to 10% maybe of Japanese women will think about dating a foreigner, and of that 5%, only 5% would think of dating a foreigner with a beard. So if you got a beard, your dating pool is tiny. So up to you what you want to do, but just so you know, the channel's coming up to 2,000 subscribers. I never say this in my videos because I think it's boring, but I might do it occasionally. I think I might do it now. Like, subscribe and share. So if you've got some friends that might like some Japan content, ask them to join the channel. They might get something out of it. But anyway, as always, hope you like the video.
Let's go.